Tonight, from former insiders, truly shocking revelations about one of America's most trusted companies. For nearly 150 years on Main Street and Wall Street, Dun & Bradstreet has had one of the best reputations in American business. But in Dun & Bradstreet's business, a reputation for integrity is more than just icing on the cake. Integrity is the cake.
If you're running a company, you need to know whether other companies will pay their bills on time. In short, whether their credit is good. Dun & Bradstreet supplies that information to its customers and makes a fortune doing so. But Tom Jarrell's investigation shows that the company now faces charges of racketeering and fraud.
Credit is the lifeblood of commerce. Try surviving in the oil business without credit. Try running a shipping operation without it, or moving raw materials across the country. The nation's prosperity has long been built upon credit. The confidence that bills presented will be paid. When good loans turn bad and credit dries up, industry comes to a halt. That's what happened in the Great Depression of 1837. Confidence vanished. There was no trusting a supplier to deliver or a customer to pay on time. Enter two men, Robert Graham Dunn of New York and later his partner, John M. Bradstreet of Cincinnati. They began paying independent correspondents to check the good name of businesses across the nation, then collated their findings. Now, for the first time, companies could buy reliable credit information on firms they wanted to deal with. In short order, the company that merchants came to trust, perhaps more than any other, was Dun & Bradstreet. To this day, it decides which companies are good credit risks, and the world listens.
I'm Charlie Moritz, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the world of Dun & Bradstreet. We have a common spirit and a common mission that unites all of us. And that mission is the dedication to providing customer service and a commitment to quality in everything that we do.
But others disagree. The way they see it, the world of Dun & Bradstreet is riddled with deception. The $4 billion company, whose motto is man's confidence in man, is being sued by customers and former employees, claiming fraud in the way it sold its credit information. A former sales manager, now running his own credit consultancy, Joe Davidoski.
A very deliberate fraud. I'm not an attorney. I can't tell you if it's criminal or not. But it's a deliberate misrepresentation of facts.
Gary Mertz is still a salesman with Dun & Bradstreet in Columbus, Ohio.
Misrepresentation. The procedures are misrepresenting the facts to the customer regarding the level of service they buy versus the amount of service they use.
Do you have a ballpark figure of alleged fraud?
Meaning over the years?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it closing in on the $600 to $700 million mark.
Dun & Bradstreet's computers hold everything you need to know before doing business with 7 million American companies. Their ownership, credit history, any court judgments, and whether they pay their bills on time. When you sign up with their Credit Services Division, you buy access to this information. Dun & Bradstreet's computers track exactly how much service they provide you, and it's measured in units. Dun & Bradstreet does not bill you later. You have to buy at least 100 of these units up front. The unit charging system is so complex that when time comes to sign up for year 2, only Dun & Bradstreet knows precisely how many units you used in year 1. But historically, Dun & Bradstreet salesmen have done everything to discourage customers from finding out. Listen to former salesman Ralph Sickinger, now a credit consultant in Canada.
They would say that the usage statement is not available. They would say that it was kicked out of the computer. I mean, we had all sorts of excuses.
So buying blind and trusting Dun & Bradstreet, many customers would sign up year after year for massive amounts of units they didn't need, and that wasn't the half of it.
Have they altered the contract after it was signed?
Yes.
Have they falsified clients' usage statistics?
Yes.
Have they ever lied about the number of units used by a client?
Yes, they have.
Have they charged clients for services which weren't delivered?
Yes, they have.
Were these practices known to management at Dun & Bradstreet?
Yes, they were.
How can you go in and lie to an individual
Meet
like that
Bill Lewis, fired in 1989, A year earlier, he had been a rising star with Dun & Bradstreet, assigned to Cincinnati.
When you walk into an office, you represent what some customers term as the god of credit. Dun & Bradstreet is known as the god of credit with 90% of the market share. Their motto is man's faith in man.
But printouts showed a large gap between the service his new customers had bought and the amount they had used.
Which comes about $350,000 gone unused amongst my 149 contract customers within Cincinnati.
$350,000 unused from you, a single salesperson in one area.
Correct. Correct.
He began asking his customers why they had bought so much, including the vice president of a local steel company.
Large business. This is a man that knows how to run a business. I showed him 5 years of what he had purchased versus what he had used. He sat back in his chair, he looked at me in the eye, and he said, "God damn," just like that. Then after he kind of composed himself a bit, he says, "Bill, do you know that you're the first D&B rep to ever tell me this?"
Night times, Bill started writing his managers. He read us some of his letters.
R.E., another case of fraud and misrepresentation in this district. Per our numerous the usage statement. Therefore, most of my accounts have no idea of what they actually used. I told the customer the truth. They apparently have been misled or lied to. I'm not sure which phrase is appropriate.
Finally, on October 20th last year, he wrote Charlie Moritz, chairman of Dun & Bradstreet. "I have witnessed massive fraud and deception in my district, and I believe it is prevalent throughout the United States."
I was brought up to go to the man in charge when things are wrong, and when your manager won't listen to you, when your manager's manager won't listen to you, when 4 levels up from you say that this is not going on, and you have 50 customers out there telling you, "I didn't know this." There's got to be someone in the corporation that wants to know that they have, let's say, 40% of my customer base that is being ripped off.
The question arises, what does management know and when did they know it? Consider the following. Point 1. For years, Dun & Bradstreet's own computers have shown that customers, including the nation's largest corporations, have unwittingly paid millions for services they never used. Top management of the Credit Services Division received detailed reports of this underusage every month. Yet nobody asked customers why they were wasting so much money. Point 2. Recent sworn testimony from a former assistant vice president states that George Feeney, currently a senior vice president of Dun & Bradstreet Corporation, frequently acknowledged dishonest sales practices back in 1985. Point 3. In 1987, an anonymous Dun & Bradstreet salesman wrote Philadelphia customers alleging fraud. As a result, many were quietly refunded tens of thousands in overcharges. Point 4. In 1988, Credit Services Executive Vice President William Back was warned by Gary Mertz and Joe Davidoski of massive overselling.
I said, "Bill, look at this record, and this record. Then call the customers. Ask them what they think. Who better to judge whether you're defrauded or not than the person who was defrauded?"
Did he do that, do you know?
No, not a single customer was called.
Davidoski, who was later fired and is suing, and Gary Mertz took their charges to federal authorities in Cincinnati. A criminal investigation continues.
Because I have a young child, there's a time in your life when you suddenly realize that you're grown up and that you are making the world what it is. And Gary and I decided that this was an intolerable condition. So we took the stand. We're in a fight.
I started thinking about when my son starts asking me questions about what I do, you know, and how I do it, and how do I make money. And telling him what is right and wrong, and trying to build good moral character in him. I just felt that I could no longer live the lie.
Among Davidoski's souvenirs, a corporate statue he won as a top salesman in 1987. With Bill Lewis, he now advises companies on possible Dun & Bradstreet overcharges. Mertz remains with Dun & Bradstreet. In Cincinnati, their disclosures brought outrage against Dun & Bradstreet within the business community.
As the word spread, civil suits were filed in federal court alleging securities law violations, racketeering, and sales fraud. Stockholders have filed suit in New York, and just last week, 5 more corporations weighed in with customer fraud charges in New Jersey, seeking triple damages.
But small companies rarely have the resources to take on a $4 billion corporation. Companies like All Points Cable of Rahway, New Jersey, owned by Vic Dario, 20 years in business with 10 employees. Just recently, he calculated that Dun & Bradstreet had oversold his company $27,000 since 1982. He's still trying to get his usage details for the 13 years prior to that.
I got something very interesting here. This morning I got a telephone call from our new Dun & Bradstreet salesman.
Another one.
Another one. I don't know what happened to Mike Bodner. I never asked for proof. I never asked to see any data. I'm doing business with a company that's, it's almost 150 years old, so you trust them, and I always trusted them. We're not a giant of American industry. We're just a small company who can't afford to be overcharged $27,000. My trust in this very, very prestigious organization has been violated, and I don't like the feeling at all.
Vic Dario's outspokenness has not been matched by any of the captains of American industry. As of this morning, more than 300 customers had complained to Dun & Bradstreet of overselling or deceptive sales practices. And these customers came from only 5 areas: Cincinnati, Birmingham, Greensboro, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. So far, settling just 25 of these complaints has cost Dun & Bradstreet more than $1 million. Not one customer publicly cried foul. Across the United States and Canada, other companies many times larger than All Points Cable with its 10 employees have uttered not a word of criticism on the ethics of Dun & Bradstreet. They've simply cut deals for restitution and signed agreements to keep quiet about it, obscuring the true dimensions of this scandal and underlying the fact of Dun & Bradstreet's market monopoly. The chairman of Dun & Bradstreet Corporation, Charlie Moritz, declined to be interviewed, but did send us this taped statement.
I'm Charlie Moritz. It's a sad fact that some of our customers have been lied to by some credit services salespeople. Although the number of these incidents appears limited and people who lie are fired, that does not excuse the wrongdoing or lessen the damage to the customers involved. As head of the Dun & Bradstreet Corporation, the responsibility is mine. I apologize to our customers. Today, we send every customer information about how much service they are using. Dun & Bradstreet does not have, nor has it ever had, a policy to deceive customers.
That last point about not deceiving customers was made earlier by Charlie Moritz in a March 8th letter to his stockholders. I read the letter to Ralph Sickinger, fired by Dun & Bradstreet in 1987 for insubordination.
Your company has never directed, encouraged, or condoned unethical or illegal conduct on the part of any of its employees. You were an employee. Does he know what's going on, or is this an information gap within a large corporation?
Well, he's either incredibly naive or he's lying. I've got documentations galore that will prove that that what he is saying is not true. I was shown how to oversell my clients by the national training manager, by my direct manager, the district manager, and by his manager, the zone manager.
That same letter denying unethical conduct drove another former salesman, Bob Wynn, who quit in 1979, to break a 10-year silence.
It's the biggest load of crap I have ever read in my entire life. That's why I've agreed to do this. It is universal within that company. It always has been. It's been that way since, I can assure you, that I know of since the 1940s. And it has to be stopped. You use terms such as you're ahead of last year's pace. I don't think you're going to run out. And this might be a customer who's using 10, 15, 20% of what he contracted for. So you go home, back to your question, what do you do? Well, I left the company. I couldn't take it any longer.
I don't think your problem will be finding a use for our service, do you?
Linda, you're right.
What underlies the push to oversell? The smiles and handshakes of the training tapes give no clues. But the real salesmen have no doubts. Al Carl, a divisional manager in Columbus, a colleague of Gary Mertz.
You're only guaranteed a base salary.
So that, in effect, if I was over by $10,000 over my quota in January and I got paid commissions on that, and now I go down by $10,000 in February, by company policy, they can take that money that they paid me in commission back out of my next check.
You were under constant pressure to renew agreements at the level of service that the customer purchased last year. This was not necessarily a way to excel in the company. It was a way to keep your job in the company.
The two friends had had enough.
My future with this company has zero. There is no potential there for me.
I believe by talking to you tonight, I will be fired.
In March, Al Carl drafted a letter.
This letter is a letter that I have written to explain my reasons for resigning. I have not yet this time given it to the company, but hopefully will. It's directed to my manager. Dear Bill, I have given my heart and soul to this company during the past 5 years and 4 months. I cannot tolerate working for a company that, in my opinion, perpetuates a system in which its customers and employees are constantly left on the short end of the stick. This letter is to serve as my formal 2-week notice that I am resigning from my position as Divisional Sales Manager for Dun & Bradstreet Incorporated. This was the best therapy I've had in a long time. I got a chance to voice my opinion, and I don't know if anybody will listen to it or not. And, you know, maybe it'd be better off if I just throw it in a garbage can rather than give it to anybody. But at least I'm making the attempt.
What did he do, Tom?
He didn't throw it in the garbage can. He resigned.
What happens now? I mean, does Dun & Bradstreet clean up its act? Where does it go from here?
Barbara, there have been changes. The president of the Credit Services Division has been reassigned. There have been structural changes in that division. But we don't know if these are actual reforms or if overselling might still be going on.